Well, coming back to social emotional learning, this is exactly what they want to do. So, school is all about interventions, and it used to be academic interventions, right? We'd see where kids were at in their academic skills, whether that be math or English or reading or whatever it is. And if they weren't where they needed to be in their grades, they could then say, okay, well, we made you take an assessment or a test. We know where you're at in the skills that you understand and know. And now we can create a plan to get you where you need to be by the end of the year. And so now they're doing that with social emotional skills. So they're literally assessing children's values, attitudes, and beliefs, which they really aren't allowed to do anyways at school because of the Protection of People Rights Amendment. And then assessing and quantifying these skills. So companies like Panorama Education are literally creating a score based on how empathetic you are, how much perspective taking do you have, and then the teacher can go in and assign kids into groups based upon this, and it's based upon the Castle 5, so we know it's all the same transformative social emotional learning stuff we talked about earlier. And then they get these interventions done, and so that they can measure where they're at and get them where they need to go, which was this collective mindset. So the new turn with social emotional learning is that it's becoming spiritual. And they say spiritual, but it really is a religion, because it is meant to have children question their worldviews that was basically instilled in them by their families and culture. What they are doing with social emotional learning is literally called indoctrination. There was a document that talked about the 5 stages of religious change, and they literally go through all of them in social emotional learning. The circle times, right, where they sit together and they share very vulnerable information with each other. I think back to there was a story of a mother whose 4th grader came home, and she told me this story. This was her daughter, that she came home and she said, "Mom, we had a circle time today. Everything went crazy because the teacher," and it was a math teacher, because again, social emotional learning can be taught in any subject. The teacher asked, "What makes you sad? Talk about something that makes you sad." Now that's like opening a can of worms with 4th graders, right? You can get just about everything from, my hamster died and I was sad, to what this 4th grader in the group next to her shared was that his parents were divorcing and now his mom was drinking and seeing other people. Now, of course, this started a vulnerable kind of cycle among the other people in their group, and they started sharing more and more vulnerable things. And by the end of the circle time, which I don't know, maybe was 10 minutes, all of the children in the circle were crying and kind of upset and unable to learn. And the teacher came by and, is of course not equipped with the tools to handle something like this, and said something along the lines of, "I'm really sorry you're going through this. Life's really hard sometimes." And then, said, "We have to get back to math," because it was math class. So these children are disordered. It makes them very suggestible. Again, building the critical consciousness in order to kind of get them to question what their parents are teaching them. And this also very much disorders children because they're the closest relationships they've experienced in their lives. So we're psychologically breaking children and then having them talk about these kind of big topics at school, why are you here? And really, Ben Clemens did a really good job in his argument against what is considered religion. It's talking about rights of conscience, right, and purpose. And so when SEL programs like the Question Project say, what is your purpose for being here? And, what is your direction in life? And these big questions, it gets kids to bond. And, when you have a lot of your peers saying things like, well, I care about the world, and, making sure that the environment thrives, and, this world is awesome. And somebody else says, well, I care about making sure that people have sexual and reproductive rights, and that we need to protect that as a nation. And, they can all of a sudden bring in all of these things and get kids to believe because they feel this sense of belonging in just about anything.